So, from the very beginning, we had some management goals for this game. So, Innogames has historically been doing a lot of empire building games. We have Tribal Wars, we have Dracules, we have Forge of Empires, which is a new branch. So we want to make something in this strategy because that's part of the company's DNA. Furthermore, we focus on PvP for Rising Generals, which means that we go into the same genre as Tribal Wars 2, Dracules is also in. However, I think Fabio said we're doing another strategy game. Really, we're not just another strategy game because we take cross-platform very seriously, and it has influenced all the decisions that we've made from a design perspective about this game. So if we move on to the next slide. Strategy and community, these are like the two big legs that all our empire building strategy PvP games are standing on. So I don't need to tell you that it's important for the player to be able to make meaningful strategic decisions in a game. That goes without saying. And of course, community is super important for our games because it's a really important part of PvP that you can work together with somebody or that you can beat up someone. Where we differentiate ourselves is with what we call immediacy. So taking up the challenge of going cross-platform in the analysis of what's going on there and how mobile devices are different from browsers and stuff like that, it became clear that we need to transform this strategy genre into something where you get immediately some feedback about what you're doing in the game. You've seen other games where you can perform an action and then you can wait for hours before you see an outcome. We're going to turn that bucket upside down, and we'll show you how we did that. So, next slide. First of all, we go into a situation where we want to ensure that you can have short game sessions. So with this, we mean you should be able to sit down in the train, sit down on your couch while you're watching TV, or even in the bathroom, which many of you probably does, and have a short, good, interesting experience, and then move on with your life. To make this interesting, we want you to feel powerful for that few moments. One way we're doing that is by focusing mostly on army actions in the game. This means usually in strategy games you have a balance between resource management and army management. So what we've done is reduce the resource management aspect and get right to the action by giving you an army and letting you do stuff in the world, to other players. Furthermore, we go into what we call instant actions, which basically means that whatever you do in the game has an impact now. Whenever you produce a resource, you get it now. Whenever you make an attack, it hurts somebody else now. Furthermore, with going cross-platform, we also realized that for mobile devices, there is, let's say, a high bar in terms of what kind of visual experience, what kind of feedback we have to offer in the game compared to what we've historically delivered. And we believe we set a high bar for ourselves also, and we would like to show you now how that comes across in the experience of playing the game. They also have to be able to hear me.
Okay, sorry. Speak louder.
Shout, I did already. Okay, so you see here a game world. This is a relatively small game world. First of all, I would like to zoom into this little blue dot because that's the most important thing in the world for you. When you play the game, this is your main base. This is your home away from home. This is where you start the game. This is where you start out planning, building, and generally causing havoc in the game world. So if we zoom out a little bit, you'll see that this place is surrounded by a blue line. This is basically your territory. So every time you capture one of these buildings, outposts, your territory is going to expand. The more territory you have, the more stuff you can produce, the more powerful you become. If we zoom out a bit further, we see a bunch of red dots now next to the blue dot. The blue dot is us, and the red dots are other players playing the game. This means that you immediately have a pretty good overview of how powerful am I in terms of territory compared to nearby enemies. When you zoom out a bit further, we see here that the map is divided into some areas. These smaller ones we call districts. This is an area where you probably spawn alongside with 10 other players. And then we have regions, which are larger areas that bunches together a group of players that in the early gameplay will interact more with each other than with the other areas. So when we're going to mid and late game, there will be a lot of warfare between the larger regions happening. If we zoom out completely, you see that we designed the map as an island. I think this island has room for a few thousand players. We're able to do maps of up to around 40,000 players, and we're planning to utilize that over time to make some really epic, gigantic battles happen. But to get into the core functionality of the game, let's go back to the main base. So we just captured an outpost here, and we really want to make life difficult for some of our nearby enemies now. So what we see here is that we have no troops here right now. We're going to change that. So when we click on the outposts, we can build troops. I think for this outpost we want to build combat vehicles, and we just select the amount of armored cars we want, and let's build 7 of those. So what you see now is the timer. You see something happens, we get the troops now immediately, and afterwards a cooldown is applied. So I will be able to build more combat vehicles in 5 minutes from now. In the meantime, let's use them for something. Oh yeah.
Rather produce some troops.
Yeah, let's not set ourselves up for failure. So we built some fuel as well, because that's required for the army to move anywhere, to do anything. And with that, I think we can close this panel.
Perfect.
So let's click the outpost again. From here, we can select army actions. And let's select this delicious main base as our main target. So main bases can be captured. They're basically your safe place in the world, but we can't harass the other guy. And we're going to do that by raiding him. So in this case, we have a few troops there. So we don't know how powerful the enemy is, but let's throw these cars at him, all of them, and see what happens. So what you see is my army entering from one side of the screen.
Oh.
That ended quickly. So in this case, the enemy was quite superior. And that sort of causes me to not really get any information about what army is there or anything. My troops just get completely wasted. So this is a good example of the main base being more powerful than the outposts, which can be captured by other players. Also, if you're in the situation that you're surrounded by very powerful enemies, you can back up your goods and basically relocate your own main base to somewhere else on the map. Anyway, after this loss, I think we should really make sure that the next time we have success, because otherwise this is going to be kind of a hilarious presentation. So let's click the main base and enter it. Oh. So the main base is a bit different from the outpost. Basically, you have a lot more functionality here. If we just scroll through the rooms, we can get you the impression that we're underground here. We're in a safe bunker. This is a very safe place. And you have a lot of different functionality available there. So if we go to the first room, we basically see this is where we produce what we call components. You need components to build everything in the game. All your troops, upgrading buildings, stuff like that. You need components. So let's build some of those. As you saw with the combat vehicles before, we get the outcome immediately, and then we have a cooldown timer until we can produce again. So if we move on to the next room, we can build some fuel in the fuel depot. We're also going to need that for making our next attack. So let's do the 10-minute production. Again, we get the fuel immediately, it fills our reserves, and we have to wait 10 minutes until we can produce again. So next room is the barracks. Here we can build some tanks. In this case, we can click a couple of the other cases. Basically, we need to research them, so we don't have them available yet, but the light tanks we can build, and we should build a bunch of those. So let's do 70 because we can afford it. And you see a 10-minute cooldown. I get 70 troops. Everything is nice. So these are the simple parts. This is like the core game loop where you can build stuff and you can attack stuff. But to be a really successful commander, you also need to know about money. Basically, every single troop you own has a cost over time. So when you check into your finance center, you need to make sure that you are earning enough money to upkeep all these troops, because otherwise they're going to leave. Next, we have the structure. This is where you keep your engineers. Engineers are required to make capture attacks and successfully take over another outpost. What you see here is that we made another capture attack recently, and the engineer is still cooling down. So once you've used an engineer, some time will pass before you can use the next one, or the same one again. Basically, we could use these two other ones right now. Moving on to the next room. Is our command center. This is a place where we can equip some officers. So if we go into the warfare officer list, this is where we've got access to a bunch of cool dudes, which will boost our, in this case, our battles. So this guy will boost tank hit points in battles. So that's very useful. Also, we have resource officers. This guy enables us to use less fuel in the attack. And finally, spying officer, which will give us some boost to our spies. In the next room is our research center. This is where we can unlock new vehicles. There's a huge amount of troops available in the game, but of course you have to research and upgrade to get access to them. Right now we can research the basic attack helicopters. It's available already, and it has a cooldown applied until we can research the next things there. Finally, we have the Army Intelligence Room. This is where we keep our spies. Like you saw before, I just sent off an army. That was kind of stupid. I should have sent off a spy first, because he will be able to tell me how is what is the upgrade level of the location, what kind of troops does the enemy have stationed there. So I think we should try and go back to the map and do that. So if we select this outpost here and click the spy, we see that we have 5 spies available. When we send him to infiltrate, there's kind of a risk that he'll be discovered. But let's click the next button and see what happens. First, we can apply some...
and we can apply some fade.
We can apply some fade, which obviously worked very well. So in this case, we should add a stealth suit to him, because that will make him much better at infiltrating. And he's successful. That's nice. So when we zoom in a bit closer to this outpost, we see that there's a bunch of information available here. When we look at the outpost next to it, it has much less information available because we don't have a spy there. So this is very useful right now. We see what kind of production is going on there, we see how much fuel is stored, and if we enter the outpost, we get a bit better overview, basically seeing what upgrade levels are there, and we also see that the spy is currently in cooldown. This means that once 30 seconds has passed, we will be able to infiltrate the army and get some insight into what kind of troops are stationed there. Of course, keep in mind the timers we're using here are for presentation purposes, so in real life this is going to be 3 hours wait. Intermission. So the spies are really powerful, and we're going to get an example of that in 2 seconds. Great, let's infiltrate the army and hope for the best. Yes! He could have failed. That would have been a bad presentation as well. So we can click on this button to see the troop list. That's a long list. Fortunately, he doesn't have so many of each of the troops, so I think we can handle this. Let's close the panel and scroll back to the main base. So from there, we can start another army action. And we'll attack this outpost. This time we're going to do capture, and we're just going to bring everything that we got. Because this time. So the battle is divided into phases. First we have air combat, which ends with a bombing raid where we reduce the morale of the enemy. Then we switch to second phase where some defenses and artillery action is happening. In the meantime, you can observe that in the top of the screen there's a relative measurement of the strength of the armies. You see I'm vastly superior in this situation, so it's going to be nice. And again, you can follow the development, you see who is the most, how quickly. So not every battle is going to be this long. This is actually because we have two very big armies facing off against each other. Under normal circumstances, the battle will be over in something like 30 seconds. And it appears we won. So, as you see, everything here is about establishing dominance. And we really hope that when you try the game out yourself, you will establish some dominance on your colleagues as well. Good. Successfully captured. 3 stars means we wiped out every single enemy there. And the nice part about this is that once you've captured, you can actually do stuff here immediately. So if we enter this, we see we can already produce some components. We can already maybe upgrade the building. So we already have the power to do something, even though we just received it. And we really hope that you're going to enjoy this.